she, her, or no pronouns. And I'm grateful to be here with you today. It is such a joy. As we begin our service, I invite you to silence your phone or close any other windows that may be on your computer. Take a deep breath and center yourself to arrive for worship. We open in welcome of the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Manahoic tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live in their descendants in the present-day Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors and as we move toward healing with all, so that one day all shall know full justice.
As Kathryn lights the chalice, I would like to read an excerpt from Unconditional by Jennifer Payne Wellwood. Willing to experience aloneness, I discover connection everywhere. Turning to face my fear, I meet the warrior who lives within. Opening to my loss, I gain the embrace of the universe. Surrendering into the emptiness, I find fullness without end. Each condition I flee from pursues me. Each condition I welcome transforms me and becomes itself transformed into its radiant, jewel-like essence. Well, welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Jim Gerard, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'm happy to be your worship associate today. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world. If you're new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, please be sure you reach out to me, our minister, Reverend William Lovewood, who's not here today, our guest minister, Kathryn, or one of today's greeters. Whether you're a longtime member, a newcomer, or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour after, online and in person, immediately after the service, and we're so delighted that you're with us today. Welcome.
And while Children's Chalice will be happening today, otherwise the children will stay with us in service. And today we will be reading I will be reading our story for all ages. What do you do with an idea? One day, I had an idea. Where did it come from? Why was it here? I wondered, what do you do with an idea? At first, I didn't think much of it. It seemed kind of strange and fragile. I didn't know what to do with it. So I just walked away from it and pretended it wasn't mine, just acted like it didn't belong to me. But it followed me. I worried what other people would think. What would other people say about my idea? I kept it to myself. I hid it away. I didn't talk about it. I tried to act as if everything was the same before my idea showed up. But there was something magical about my idea. And I had to admit, I felt better and happier when it was around. It wanted food. It wanted to play. It actually wanted a lot of attention. It grew bigger, and we became friends. I showed it to other people, even though I was afraid what they might say. I was afraid when other people saw it, they would laugh at it. I was afraid they would think it was silly, and many of them did. They said it was no good. They said it was too weird and a waste of time, and it would never become anything. And at first, I believed them. I actually thought about giving up my idea, and I almost listened to them. But then I realized, what do they really know anyway? This was my idea. No one knows this better than I do. And it's okay to be different and maybe a little weird. I decided to protect it, to care for it. I fed it good food, I played with it, but most of all, I gave it my attention. And my idea grew and grew, and so did my love for it. I built a new house, one with an open roof, where we could look up at the stars and a place where it could be safe to dream. I liked being with my idea. It made me feel more alive, like I could do anything. It encouraged me to think big, and then think bigger. It shared its secrets with me, and it showed me how to walk on my hands, because it is good to have the ability to see things differently. I couldn't imagine my life without it. And then something amazing happened. My idea changed right before my eyes. It spread its wings and it took flight and burst into the sky. I don't know how to describe it, but it went from being here to being everywhere. It wasn't just a part of me. Now it was part of everything. And then I realized what you do with an idea. You change the world. Nurture is literally to care for and encourage the growth of. And what we choose to nurture in our lives is how we build the life we love. I invite you into the spirit of meditation and to settle in your seat. Find a place that is comfortable for you. Maybe your feet are on the floor, your spine generally upright. Maybe another position's more comfortable. We create the life we love, each of us in our own way. We use different experiences. We choose different explorations and journeys, and what we nurture will grow. If it feels good to you, I invite you to place a hand on your heart and another on your belly. Let your gaze rest, or maybe your eyes flutter close. And I invite you to breathe with me into these questions. And if so moved, those here may call out a short answer, and for those online, please feel free, welcome to put an answer in the chat. I'll repeat them for our entire community. What have you chosen to nurture that has given you joy? Community. What have you chosen to nurture that has brought you peace? Meditation, old friendships, children and pets. What have you chosen to nurture that has inspired creativity? Music and dance. Wonder. And what have you chosen to nurture that has helped you grow? Painting. Art. relationships in this community. Because, beloveds, what we nurture grows for the earth, for ourselves, for our communities. Our attention and intention is a gift. It is precious, and it is key to building the life we love.
The following is an excerpt from the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman's The Sound of the Genuine. Now, if I hear the sound of the genuine in me, and if you hear the sound of the genuine in you, it is possible for me to go down in my spirit and come up in your spirit, so that when I look at myself through your eyes, having made that pilgrimage, I see me as you see me. Then the wall that separates and divides us will disappear, and we will become one of the sound of the genuine makes as the same music.
Thank you, Jim. Creativity is our birthright. Creativity is fundamentally part of what makes us human. Creativity is a vibrant part of our spiritual tradition and history, and creativity is essential to the future. Austin Fuentes, author of The Creative Spark, How Imagination Made Humans Exceptional, offers that creativity is to look at the world around us and see it how it is, and then imagine other possibilities beyond our immediate personal experience or that are not immediately present. Creativity is seeing the possibilities and then trying to make those imaginings material reality. Creativity is an essential part of being human, individually and communally. It is our birthright. I invite you to reflect with me. Think of a time when your creativity felt particularly strong. It flowed effortlessly. When the possibility was welcomed with curiosity, exploration, and wonder. Hold those memories. What made that time special or unique? What happens when we set aside the comfort of knowing, of only seeing a beautiful blue sky like we're gifted with today, and get caught up in our knowing that the molecules of air absorb light at specific frequencies, allowing a certain light frequency to come through that our brain perceives as the color we call blue in English? For curiosity, wonder, and exploration, living as in a beginner's mind and living in the openness of what could be, may be, wondering that the air I breathe is the air you breathe, the air my ancestors breathed, the ancestors who of all of us breathed, our heroes and heroines through time, even the air the dinosaurs breathed. Wondering at the expanse of sky that seems so vast and yet is an ever so thin blue line around our planet that holds all the air that ever was and that all life depends on. Creativity and wonder guide us to the truth of our interdependence. And for a long time, I lived in the world of the known and the knowing. And even in that space, I was creative, but I didn't realize it. My natural creativity is like weaving. Are there any other fiber arts people out there? I see one or two. A thread from here, a patch from there, a story, a plan, and it came together. But I told myself it wasn't mine, because I knew where it came from. And then I read a little book, Steal Like an Artist. And that type is a type of creativity. And once I changed my mental framing that I wasn't creative, things started to flow. That small change is an example of what Ralph Say, the author of Positive Thinking, is quoted as, quote, "The truth is, if you change your mind, you can change your life, but you have to believe it is possible. Stealing Like an Artist invited me to consider that it was possible, and eventually to recognize the creativity that was there all along, just waiting for me to be ready for it and ask the right questions. Living into our creativity starts with a mindset of openness and wonder. And creativity is more than an individual trait. It's inherent in who we are as a faith tradition. Reviewing the history of the Barry Street essays and reading through the through line, 200 years of the Barry Street essay, shows us that our tradition from the very beginning was a creative enterprise. And we built creative communities then, and we are building new and different creative communities now. The Barry Street essay started in 1820 to create a space where liberal ministers could discuss theological concerns, bond with colleagues, and learn from each other. Mark Harris offers that it was vital for Reverend Mark Harris offers that this was vital for the development of our faith tradition, creating something centered around growing and learning new and deeper truths rather than a dogma or a creed. These essays continue today at the end of ministry days and just prior to the start of General Assembly, when the Unitarian Universalists gather to do our national business. And this year's Barry Street essay was truly exceptional. I invite you to check it out. It was by the Reverend Michael Slack, if you haven't had a chance. Another essayist who stood out to me was not one of the usual suspects. This time, I was struck by both the essay of Reverend Edward Everett Hale in 1892 and Reverend Dr. Nicole Kirk's analysis. I think it speaks to both our history and nurtures our present and future in really powerful and creative ways. This was about 70 years before the Unitarians and the Universalists merged into our current faith tradition. And a common description of Unitarianism at the time was being about the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and the neighborhood of Boston, which is both sexist and, at the time, true. Reverend Hale was asked to represent the best of Boston Unitarianism. He did, and he didn't do that. And that's why this essay stands out to me. Most of the essayists until and around this time were writing about obscure theological points, generally Christian. Hale was being invited to continue that tradition and to expound that trend with his academic prowess. Instead, Hale broke the pattern, and he didn't extol the past or offer obscure academia. He called the ministers to creatively nurture the people. He called them into the human heart. Hale beseeches abandon forever the worship of the past where the clergy tended to be either actual or de facto aristocracy. He called them to work in the turbulent present. In parallel, our denominational activity in the 1960s civil rights movement was generative and a history to be proud of, as was our founding. Yet we are being beseeched today to participate in the third wave of the civil rights movement, to address white supremacy culture by what Hale would say, giving ourselves frankly to the present. He challenged the blatant classism and his peers to speak to the relief of human suffering in the face of the radical social changes brought around by transportation, steamboats, and railways, work changes, industrialization, and unions, and nationalism. Today, we are also in the midst of radical social change, and we are called to relieve human suffering of classism and white supremacy culture because Black lives matter. Our radical social change is also associated with changes in the technology that connect us without even needing transportation. The way we work is changing. Does work have to be done in person is now a question. And the answer often is tied to both education and privilege. And nationalism is both rising and deteriorating at the same time, creating conditions for the rise of autocracy. Hale imagined the purpose of ministry then was to quicken the life of men and women who have been bowed down, neglected, despised, and rouse them to the freedom of sons and daughters of the living God. Now, I would update that language for today and remove the artificial gender binary and diversify the concept of God as to be a God of your understanding or a spirit. And yet, I'm also struck by how amazingly creative and generative that was for the 1800s. And there's still resonance in that for who we are called to serve, to center the voices of those on our margins. We are called to do that today and 130 years later. We are called to fix the systems that break human dignity, and we are called to love. Today, we build communities that hold space where we can explore and think through not fully processed thoughts, feel deeper, make meaning in experiences that invite us to grow, expand our cultural horizons with learning, history, and new viewpoints. All of this invites creativity of new ways of thinking, being, feeling, and doing. Creative communities see the world as it could be, should be, and act to bring that world into being. Creative communities are open and allow the flow of ideas and people exploring communities within that community of Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church, of Fairfax, Virginia, nationally and beyond. We gather imagining the beloved community, something that has never truly existed for all, and committed action to make that possibility a reality. And beloveds, if that is not a powerful, generative, creative thought that can transform the world, like the idea in the story we read earlier, I truly don't know what is. We are a dynamic, diverse, multi-generational community committed to nurturing spiritual growth, rich and challenging worship, democracy, and social justice. We dare to imagine the pluralistic world and community as a communal creation. We do it all with our fractal interactions, each of us living with creativity, curiosity, and wonder, choosing to care for each other. I believe Reverend Hale would be very proud. Returning to Fuentes, the author I opened with, the capacity to think together, to imagine possibilities and to hope, that's what got us here. I offer it's also what will create the beloved community in a pluralistic society where all are seen, cared for, and loved. We are at our best when we're grounded in a relentless curiosity, without assumptions. When we are grounded in our own learning and explorations, and beloved, we have just rounded the crossroads in our faith tradition toward a liberation theology, centering the voices that have been excluded in our history, building communities where all are welcome, seen, and loved just as they are. Moving beyond individual faith and engaging with each other, acting for justice in our largest communities, that is the future of our faith. That is the world we are called to bring into being. And beloveds, I am excited to be on this journey with you. Einstein wrote a friend, "Never cease to stand like curious children before the great mystery into which we were born." And I love that thought because it is so fractal. It invites us to consider how the large is merely a reflection of the small, as Adrienne Marie Brown teaches. The small is indeed all. Play and creativity can be in all our interactions. And when it is, we will bring creativity into the larger community structures and build that future that we dream of. An important way we bring these daily interactions into larger communities is how we agree to be with each other. We are a covenantal people, and a covenant is just an agreement. We agree how we will be together. We covenant in small group ministries, when we gather, when we have we have a congregational covenant. And it is important that we return to this agreement when other disagreements arise, when we need to disrupt or to call each other back into community. It supports that really big tent that allows us to welcome everyone, knowing we will disagree. And it guides us how to be together, holding the space for multiple viewpoints. And when harm occurs, how to restore, care, justice, and when possible, recovenant. Think about what a creative process that is. When we are drafting whether we're drafting that aspirational covenant for our communal dreaming or a behavioral covenant to guide how the members of a community will interact, how we live in all our small daily interactions, creatively and with love, centering the voices of others, and playfully transforms all of our society. Play can be in so many forms. It brings the mind, body, and spirit together, nurturing joy, growth, and the spirit of life. We support each other here in this sanctuary and online in creativity, covenant, and nurturing our growth, building the lives we love. We as a congregation nurture the creativity in ourselves, each other, and we can change the world.
As Kathryn extinguishes our chalice flame, we will continue to carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out into the world. I invite you now to join me in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
As we prepare to go forth into our larger community, let us bring our calm and open hearts. May we make peace and grow in wholeness, give from our light and live with integrity and reciprocity. Practice possibility. Live in relationship to the Spirit within ourselves and all living things, being fully present to each moment of this one wild, wonderful, beautiful life.